I always encourage you, anything you taste in here, if you think, you know, I like the idea of this, I like basically that, you know, I love the ingredients, but I'm not crazy about mushrooms, or I'm not crazy about peppers, whatever it is in there. But you like the recipe overall, and it's affordable to you, it works for your weight loss efforts, etc., etc. Just make it yours when you go home. Don't add the mushrooms. Or if when you taste it and you think, it just could use a little more salt. Remember, I'm trying to stay in that middle place when I salt things here, because some people are very, very sensitive to salt, and it's critical that they keep it on the lower side. Some people are very accustomed at this point in time to very heavily salted foods, and you're trying to get away from that. So remember that, you know, I'm trying to stay right somewhere in the middle. That would be appropriate for most everybody. But if you're somebody who is gradually trying to change the amount of salt, to reduce the amount of salt, and I'm just using that as an example here, anything, whether it's fat or salt, or you're trying to cut back on, you know, your meats, red meat, do it slowly, just like you want your weight loss to be gradual. Do your taste buds a favor and do it gradually, so you don't feel like you're going from heavy salted foods to no salt, because then nothing's going to taste good to you. Just take it, you know, bit by bit. So if you're at this end of the spectrum and you're used to heavy salts, and you taste something in here, remember that it's in the middle, and you might want to just add a little extra pinch just for now to set, so that you will try that dish again, because it's going to work for you. Remember that I always choose dishes that will support weight loss. So I just wanted to suggest that, and remember, and that's the fun about recipes, any recipe. I make it here, it's mine. It can come from somebody else, but then I make it mine, and then as soon as you make it, you can either do it exactly how I did it, because that's how you liked it, or just change one thing, change 4 things, and make it yours. And every time you do it, it becomes more and more yours. Now, make it work so that you want to eat it. All right, so back to Brussels sprouts. You'll see there's 2 recipes on there. One is cooked, and one is raw. I decided to do the raw one. I'll talk about the cooked a little bit, but I wanted to give it to you because it looks fantastic, doesn't it?
Is that something like cabbage?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. So Brussels sprouts. Who ever cooks with Brussels sprouts?
Cook some Brussels sprouts.
Anybody? You cook. Okay. Do you cook them? Have you ever eaten them raw?
What?
Okay. It's very well. Think about this. What other food do you eat that kind of tastes like Brussels sprouts? It's actually and looks like Brussels sprouts. Right? Looks like Brussels sprouts. Cabbage. And how do you eat cabbage very often? Raw, in a slaw. So this is basically going to be like a slaw. Then with the addition of dried cranberries, there's going to be a little sweetness, right? And maybe there's a little bitterness to the Brussels sprouts, maybe not. Oftentimes when you cook Brussels sprouts, I think a lot of people don't like Brussels sprouts because they are so often overcooked. And as soon as you overcook them, that's when the kitchen smells, right? That's when it smells so like sulfury and kind of, you know that smell, right? That comes from overcooking, and they also become mushy and they can become bitter. So the key is to minimizing the amount of time that they're in contact with heat, which also does what? The less heat you put, and I'm not saying heat is bad, but when you cook a vegetable, what's one of the goals with heat? When you think about not overcooking, for not only for taste, but what else? What else changes if you really over it? Yeah, you can lose a lot of the nutrients. So you're losing a lot of the goodness for your body. So that's true for Brussels sprouts as well. So you want to avoid overcooking for a number of reasons, and that's true for most things. So back to the slaw, the raw. The sweetness of the dried cranberries, the nuttiness of the toasted nuts, the walnuts, right? I'll toast them right there. Chickpeas. Think about Brussels sprouts and what other foods remind you of Brussels sprouts.
Cabbage.
Cabbage. What else reminds you of cabbage? Cauliflower. What else? So go from each one that you mentioned, then think of another one that reminds you. Broccoli, kale. Not lettuce, but horseradish. Isn't that an odd one to belong in there? I wrote a bunch of them down. Mustard greens. Remember last week I cooked some bok choy? Bok choy is in there too.
Is that what you cooked last time?
I did, yeah. Bok choy. And all of them are high in fiber. Well, most vegetables are high in fiber, but they're especially high in fiber. Very, very high in vitamin A, very, very high in vitamin C, so they're good. You know, there's a lot of goodness in them, and most of them have some protein in them as well. So that's a good quality. So it's just anytime you want to, you know, think about those cruciferous vegetables as something to increase your intake of. Collard greens belong in that family. Yeah. Before I put together this salad, I do want to look, if you will, I want to look at the hot recipe. The zesty Brussels sprouts and collard green sauté. So back to the idea that Brussels sprouts are best when they're not overcooked. So keep an eye on them when you're cooking them. And one way of preparing, one easy way of preparing them, if you don't want to add all these other ingredients, is to cut off the end, right? Well, first, take the yellowy leaves off. If you see a bag of Brussels sprouts that have a lot of yellow on them or a lot of big puffy leaves or they're not compact, they're not hard, you want to go pass them up and look for something else. So you want it to look like that. Bright, bright green, compact, no yellow. There were a couple of yellowing leaves. Michaela pulled them all off and cleaned them up. So you want to rinse them, pull those off, and then you can cut the stem off, right that, and then cut it in half, and then cut it in quarters. And then you can just put them in a steamer basket and steam them for like 6 minutes. Or you can even just simmer them in a little bit of water. Drain them, and then I think, and then the best way to prepare them, two best ways, is to then just drizzle a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of lemon, or a little bit of lemon, you know, grated lemon, the rind, zest, and salt and pepper. They need, you know, they're definitely going to want some salt, a little bit. That's a really simple, nice way to make them. Or you could roast them. If you got your oven on and you've got something else cooking, cut them up in that same way, cut the stem, quarter them, and then drizzle them with the olive oil, salt, pepper, and toss them. Lay them flat out on a cookie sheet and roast them at 400 for maybe 15 minutes. Maybe 15. I would check them at 10 because they're quartered. And then when they come out, you could put a little bit of Parmesan cheese on them if you had a little bit of grated cheese. Or back to the lemon. That's a nice time to then just squeeze some fresh lemon and serve them. So they're nice. The key being, don't leave them in the oven too long and don't leave them steaming too long. And the way you can test them if they're ready when they're in a steamer basket is to just take either a toothpick or a knife or a fork tong or something. And if it just goes in with no effort, it just goes, shh, they're done.
Okay.
Yeah. So you want to avoid getting to that mushy place. Okay, there's anything else about the cooking that I wanted to mention to you? Before I get to the salad, what do you notice about the nutrition facts for both of these recipes? Just look through some of those numbers. A couple of things really stand out to me that I just want to bring to your attention. What do you think? So take a look at the nutrition label for both recipes. What do you notice? They're good things. What do you think about the calories?
There's more calories in the salad than it is in the food.
Not necessarily that there's more in one than the other, but just how low the calories are per serving, right? So that's one of the benefits, of course, of vegetables, right?
Okay.
Low in calories, okay? What about, so you've got the total fat. One is 9 grams, the other is 11. Well, what about the saturated fat? 1 gram. Right, so it's the good fat is in both. So every time you're looking at a label, whether it's for Brussels sprouts recipes or a pasta sauce or whatever it is you're looking at, when you see that, when you compare the total fat with the saturated, and the saturated goes all the way down to 1, you know the kind of fat that's in there is going to be the kind that's good for your body. Healthy fats are you're going to find them in olive oil and peanut oils, canola oil. Yep. And then the other ones like lard and butter and those are going to have high saturated fat. High saturated fat is what we're trying to cut way back on. And remember trans fats? Eliminate it altogether whenever you can. If something has trans fats in it, look for something else that doesn't, because there will be something else that doesn't. The other thing, look at the cholesterol.
0.
There's no cholesterol. Yeah, that's a good thing right there. Carbohydrates, very low. So it's a good recipe for that. Look at the fiber, high in both. Protein, good in both. So that's, I just wanted to highlight that to keep, look at those labels. Look at the nutrition facts on any recipe you're considering making, and that could very deeply inform what you choose. That's why a lot of restaurants are putting the nutrition facts and on their menus. Yeah, to help people make better informed decisions. Okay, now to this recipe. This is what we did. So I've got this whole bowl of shredded cabbage, and this is how I did it. It was the easiest thing, and Jaquel helped me so we could move through it twice as fast. Do the same thing. So it's washed, patted dry. Cut off the root, like that, and then cut it in half, and just take some of the big ones that fall off naturally. And then, so it's cut in half with the root gone. Then I just put it flat on the cutting board with a sharp knife and just go through it like little teeny ribbons, real thin ribbons, and I'll show you what it looks like once I get through it. Kind of like, how you would cut some basil or something else that you would roll up, right? The cabbage is already in that shape. It's already kind of rolled up for you and stacked. And then it just turns into these little ribbons, right? And so when you're eating something like this that has a strong flavor and it's raw, the finer you can get it, the more you can, the better it's going to taste to you. It's going to be easier to chew and all of that. And then the other ingredients will toss nicely with it. All right, so that's the easiest thing, and all of that cabbage comes from just 2 bags, two bags of the Brussels sprouts. It makes a lot, because this is a double batch. Okay, I've got the pan heating here, so I'm going to go ahead and put the walnuts in. And the reason behind toasting is to bring the taste out. Walnuts are pretty bland on their own. They're delicious, but they're one way for those of you who haven't been here when I've done nuts before, the fastest and best way to bring out the flavor of a nut is to lightly toast it. And when you do that, you want to stay close to it because they're easy to burn. The oils are volatile in nuts, meaning they go bad quickly and they burn very quickly. So just stay close. So when you're doing other things, keep your eye on it and let your nose tell you when it's ready. If they're starting to smoke, then it's probably too late. You want to start over again. So this is a heavy bottom pan. Even if you didn't have a heavy bottom pan like this, you could use a lighter bottom, but all the more reason to just stay there and wait. And I'll turn the heat up because I'm so close to it. Okay, so while those are cooking, and if I get distracted, just give me the signal. Cabbage, shredded. Here are the garbanzo chickpeas, and it's just a couple of cans, and they're drained. And you know, you can go from store brand all the way up to, you know, Progresso brand. And so this is 2 cans. They're drained and rinsed. And that's a way to move the sodium off of there. There was actually a low sodium option. So that's good to keep in mind when you're looking, if you're using a lot of canned foods and you're looking to cut back on sodium, go ahead and get the low sodium. But in any case, low sodium or not, get in the habit, if you will, of draining and rinsing, because that's going to take away a lot. So if you're adding a can of beans or something to stew, still do that, because if you just pour the whole liquid in there, you can unknowingly add a lot of sodium. Yeah, a lot. So that's a good way. So I'm just going to add them here. Nothing's really precise because I doubled the recipe, but everything here is just either a little bit less or a little bit more. And we'll just make the taste work. So you want to move the nuts around a bit so they can get all the different edges done here. These strawberries, by the way, are not for the salad. They're just for the plate. They're just local strawberries. Gee, on sale, and any excuse to eat more fruit is good. All right, speaking of which, here's some dried cranberries. And the reason I have 2 different kinds here, the store brand, I looked at the ingredients and it was fine. Both of them have the same ingredients. Dried cranberries, a little bit of sunflower oil, and sugar, right? But these, for the same amount, same serving size, these have 20 grams. So the sugar accounts for 20 grams extra, right? And calories per serving is 100. These, and there's nothing wrong with these, but I just wanted to use this as a way of comparing. They're delicious, so are these. These have 130 calories per and 29 grams of added sugar. So you see my point? Why not go for the one? They're going to taste virtually identical. Why not just take the gift of, well, there's 30, I won't even recognize, I won't even realize ever. But if you did that all the time, think of how that can add up over the course of a day. It's amazing, actually. It's amazing. And that could be little things like that, little tricks like that can get you to your 250 calories reduction each day or 500 calories reduction. Every little bit counts getting to that goal. And there's 30 of them right there. So, okay. So what I did is I just opened the bag, measured them out, and then chopped them. And they'll mix well in there. And then just sprinkle them. I'm sure I put in more than I need to there. Tend to the nuts. I'm starting to smell them. Can you smell them out there? Okay. Yep. It's almost there. I'm going to leave them there another minute. Haven't gotten the warning sign from Jaquel yet. Some lemon juice. I think it's 2 tablespoons?
2 tablespoons.
Okay. So I will put in 4, since it's double. And I have a lot more lemon juice than I probably need. But I'll hold off until I taste it. I don't want to go too much. And I might end up putting a little bit of pinch of sugar in here. Don't know. And now here's the olive oil. I measured that out, so this is exactly 6 tablespoons. So a single recipe, it would be 3. So I'm going to do that. All right. And I'm going to call these done. And what I did is I brought a plate so that when I take them off the heat, I can leave them in a single layer. Turn the heat off here. Leave them in a single layer until they cool. When they cool is when I'll cut them, and that's when they'll be crispy. If I were to cut them right now, they'll be kind of soft. They'd still taste good, but. All right, now I'm going to toss this, and I'm going to put some salt in there too. I mean, this salad it's a beautiful salad, right? It's real colorful, and it might benefit from more cranberries. It might want more lemon. What's that?
Excuse me. What's sprouting that bowl of cabbage?
This is Brussels sprouts. Yep,
And I make coleslaw with them?
you can. If you like it, by all means.
Tastes like cabbage.
It doesn't, well, you know why it doesn't taste like cabbage? Because it's not cabbage. It's in the same family. The walnuts are going to add a lot of flavor. The walnuts are going to add crunch. And what else am I going to, what do you think about putting, the recipe doesn't call for this, but Brussels sprouts and red onions go together well. What do you think about me fine chopping a red onion? All right, excellent. All right, I'm going to do that. But first I'm going to chop the walnuts. See how crunchy they are already? And you just go through them coarsely. And you'd be amazed. Sometime at home, do the taste test. Taste a walnut before you toast them, and then taste it after. And it is like a different animal when you do it. All right. Okay. I'm going to put it back on the plate. They're still a little warm, which is not a problem. Okay. Now I'll chop up the onion. I won't put too much in there. Just enough to give it a bite. Right? Okay. Well, I don't want to overpower it, so I'm not going to put this whole onion in.
Oh, no, that's too big.
Yeah. All right. Take that off. So I usually just cut the two ends of an onion off, and then take that outer, and then just really, really, really thin slices all the way through. And I'll probably just do half of this. So I sliced it all the way through that way, right? Very thin. And then turn it like that, and then just do exactly the same thing, right? Almost the same way that pretty much the same way I did the Brussels sprouts. Right, little as thin as possible. My knife is starting to dull because I've done so much cutting today. I'm still getting the job done though. It's just a little bit more effort to do so. All right, so there, look at how tiny that brought it up into little teeny pieces. So it's worth it to get good at those skills because you save yourself so much time later on. So it may take a little bit extra effort to get that thin cut initially, but use the back of the knife and then I don't have to use my hand, so add that. And, okay, toss it well. It could be that these walnuts are what tie it together, right? So since we're serving it right now, I'm adding the walnuts, but I wouldn't add the walnuts if I was going to refrigerate it and then serve it later. I would have the walnuts ready for last minute tossing because they would get kind of mushy. We'll try that. It has that aftertaste of, that back taste of cabbage. It really does. All right. Now remember, at home, if you make this and you say, I want the walnuts to have a stronger presence in this, add some walnuts. Or I want the cranberries to have a stronger presence in this, etc. Do that. And remember, for things like walnuts or the cranberries, you'll have to say, okay, so per serving this is 130 calories. But if I'm adding more walnuts, then you just take that into account and say, okay, it's just a little bit more. It's going to be a little higher in calories, but the nuts are good source of fat. Okay, I would say that's ready to taste, and then you guys can adjust as you want. If overcooking Brussels sprouts is easy to do, and it's a hot day, or you've got access to them and you don't cook them, eat them raw, like a coleslaw.